to swallow for victims' families. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley doesn't understand it.
Well, I don't understand why it is that we would reach a deal with the guy who is responsible for thousands of Americans being dead. And I don't understand why we would take the death penalty off of the table, which is, I understand, the deal here. I mean, my gosh, if anybody deserves the death penalty, it's this guy. Again, this administration, let's just put it this way. They won't arrest anybody who are out there defacing our statues, tearing down American flags, burning them right there in public, right in front of the Capitol, and raising the Hamas flag. They turn around and make a deal with the 9/11 terrorist.
Police confirmed yesterday that the man who carjacked and then ran over a woman in the Virginia suburbs last weekend is an illegal alien from El Salvador. The Loudoun County Sheriff's Office said 21-year-old Jose Aguilar Martinez, who has no fixed local address, was arraigned Tuesday on carjacking charges in connection to the deadly car theft that killed Silver Spring resident Melody Waldecker. Rachel Pisani is a Loudoun County resident and mother.
I think we need to critically re-examine our leadership. I think we need to critically re-examine what's going on, not just in our county, but in our country. So this is just another example of the crime and of the actions that happen when we let people into our borders and they're not vetted, they're not checked. We open our borders to anybody and everybody.
John Tiggs is also a Loudoun County resident.
I mean, this used to be a place that people were drawn to. It was one of the most prestigious places to live in this area, and it was a safe area. But if you go back, I mean, we started having problems with public safety in our schools here, and we became well known for perversion being allowed in the schools. And when that is allowed and the public safety officials don't handle it well, next thing you know, you have cover-ups of rapes. And I would suggest to you there's a direct connection between the policies that have gone on in schools and the attitude that criminals have that this is a good place to promote crime. I mean, you don't see these problems in Dead Dog, North Dakota.
Former President Donald Trump took questions from a panel of black journalists in Chicago Wednesday. Steve Jordahl reports the old Donald Trump was back.
President Trump addressed the National Association of Black Journalists yesterday in Chicago. He certainly showed no fear in the proverbial lion's den. This was the setup for the first question of the day from ABC's Rachel Scott.
You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys.
Trump must have left the kinder, gentler, more introspective version of himself on the RNC stage in Milwaukee.
For you to start off a question and answer period, especially when you're 35 minutes late because you couldn't get your equipment to work, in such a hostile manner, I think it's a disgrace.
And as expected, he tore into his prospective opponent, Kamala Harris.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Chicago pastor David Lowery says Trump was in his element.
The hosts were combative toward him. He was able to handle them and put the facts out there.
He says the event was a success for Donald Trump.
He got all his information in that he wanted to get to the black journalists about what he would do. He accomplished his mission.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
American Family News is online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
I think it's safe to say most people have seen the I Want You, Uncle Sam poster. It inspired many to join the war effort in World War I. More than 100 years later, AFA Action needs your help to fight a war that rages in our culture. To answer the call to action, please sign up for action alerts today, and if you would, give to AFA Action so we can stay on the front lines. You'll get the Christian Handbook for Civic Engagement as our thanks. Visit afaaction.net today.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim Wildman. with Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Fred Jackson.
Good morning.
Chris Woodward.
Hello.
Some may be wondering, well, Tim, isn't Ray Pritchard on with you twice a week on this show? Where is he gone to? And the answer is he's traveling the country at various and sundry Bible camps. Because
Yes.
That's what he does.
It's that time of the year where a lot of churches put on, Bible camps or have conferences because it's summer. Kids are out of school, so families can travel, etc. And so Dr. Ray, Brother Ray, does that a lot. And he'll do some during the winter, usually in warmer climates.
Yeah,
But,
isn't that convenient?
Yes, it is. And so that's where he is. And this kind of happens every
January,
summer.
and I just feel like the Lord's calling me to Florida.
Yes, to teach the Word of God.
Yes, right. So question that.
Yes, that's right.
You question the Lord calling me to Florida in January?
I feel like
I
the Lord.
I get a kick out of always when these. I shouldn't say this. It sounds like I'm being disrespectful maybe I am, but it's still funny.
Yeah.
Pastors never get called to a smaller church.
Yes.
You notice this?
That's right. I have noticed that.
They never say that. You know what? I know that the Lord has me at this 1,000-member church, but I really feel like I'm called to this 27-member church out in the country.
Yes.
To serve the Lord. Who's with me?
Well, and you know what? If that does happen,
Yeah.
you never hear about him again. That may have something to do with it. You'll hear about him if he goes to a 10,000-member church, but
Right.
if he goes to a 27-member church,
Right. You just never hear
to
from
be
him
heard
again.
from again.
You don't hear about a mega small church.
That's right,
News.
mega small. And they're out there, mega small churches.
Oh my goodness! All right, now listen. My dad was a pastor of a small church. I say small church. They had like 100 or less, maybe 100 for a few years. 100 to 200, maybe.
That's not really a small church.
It was about 100.
Well, it's small compared to Joel
Yeah,
Osteen.
it's all relative.
Yeah.
I know, but I just remember. So my dad, he was a Methodist minister, but he was. You know how he is.
Yeah,
he mowed the yard.
Yeah, that's why I said that when you say 100 or two, and
Right.
you go to 200, that's a lot of work for a pastor. I mean, you're talking about
A lot
marriage,
of families.
a lot of family.
Especially if you're by yourself.
Yes,
Yeah. I remember he would mow the grass and ride the mower home on the street down the. I remember one day he came. This is the mid '70s or early '70s. I remember one day he was riding down the street.
Yeah.
You know, it was about half a mile from our house. The church was from
Right.
the parsonage. He was riding the lawnmower. I think it was our own personal lawnmower. Anyway, and the thunderstorm came, and he's out there riding in the.
Now I know the area.
This is
of
the
the
life.
city.
This is the life of a small church pastor right here.
It's not a busy. It's not like a 4-lane, or it's not a busy road where the church was. I mean, he wasn't holding up a whole line.
No,
of traffic.
no, but it's just like this thunderstorm.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
lightning could have struck the lawnmower.
Yeah, and you can't exactly throw it into fourth gear and
Right.
hightail.
I'm just saying that a lot of pastors who at least started they start at small churches. They do it all. They're the
plumber.
I know if the toilet backs up in
That's
the
right.
restroom, guess who's
Call the
fixing it?
preacher.
Yeah, call the. He gets paid. He doesn't work but Sunday.
And of course, the preacher always finds out right before he's supposed to preach, like right before the 11 o'clock service. The toilet behind the baptistry is backed up or something.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I just that's why I always do they don't work but Sunday.
Yes.
Maybe Wednesday.
Yeah.
I know. I see the resentment building up.
Oh yeah,
You right there.
I'm resentful.
Yeah. I always, in all seriousness, I used to think, well, that's that's not fair,
right?
Because who takes a call on at midnight saying my son's been in a car accident?
It was not uncommon for me to get calls when I was pastoring, working here, full time, pastoring a church part time, and get a call 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have to go down to the hospital or something like that. Plus, preparing messages. You know, if you're a pastor and you're preaching Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, that's 3 messages to prepare. And I never got messages, sermons off the internet or anything like that.
Right.
I prayed, got in the Word, and it would take, hours for each message.
I wouldn't make it. I'd be doing sermonettes. I wouldn't.
Be doers of the word.
They wouldn't,
Bless you.
Yes.
They wouldn't keep me around long. How come his sermons are only 7 minutes long? I don't know. All right, Fred. Good morning to you, Brother Fred. Oh, over to Chris.
I'm Fred
I just
today.
said good morning, Fred.
Yeah.
Good morning, brother.
Yeah, let's
Morning,
begin
Chris.
with breaking news that's actually a big story on most of the television networks that we have on here in the studio. We also have it on our website. The headline is Massive Prisoner Swap Involving the U.S. and Russia is underway.
Is it massive, Chris?
It is massive because it has been reported that maybe even some other countries are involved in this. It's kind of a bizarre situation.
Kind of like the Major League Baseball trading deadline.
Yeah, I don't know if cash and a player to
yesterday.
be named is mentioned here, but details are still trickling in. Now, in our story that we have on AFN.net, Americans considered by the U.S. to be wrongfully detained in Russia include Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan, a corporate security executive from Michigan. Both of those gentlemen have been convicted of espionage charges that the U.S. government has long considered baseless and have pushed for Gershkovich and Whelan to be released from Russia. We don't know who the U.S. may be giving up in exchange for these two men and whoever else may be involved. So do stick with us today. But this does come at a time in which the Biden-Harris administration is trying to prove to the world that it's capable and fully well-versed on foreign policy.
Now, we, the United States, already traded the Merchant of Death.
Yes.
For, that's not a pro wrestler, by the way.
No.
But we've traded the Merchant of Death, which was a really, really bad dude, to get the Brittany Grenier, the basketball player, back.
Mm-hmm. Victor
Remember
Bout
that?
was the name of that.
And passed up Paul Whelan.
Yes.
Yes. Now he is involved in
this one,
this deal.
this trade.
Listen, if you are a person of any note at all, okay, you should not go to Russia, right? Because I'm just convinced that what the Russians do, of course, they probably keep track of everyone who's coming in to their country, unlike ours on the southern border. They know who's in the country, and they are liable to arrest you on trumped-up charges. You're a spy. You are a spy, okay? And then you're stuck there until they can find a way to trade you for somebody they want.
Yes.
And listen, that's just the way countries operate. And then, our country's liable to say, fine, we'll arrest a couple of years. And then these people stay in jail or in prison for 2 or 3 years, and then they finally get traded.
Apparently, there are at least 26 prisoners involved in this swap. One of them, they're reporting there's a guy, a Russian held in a Berlin jail who was, I'm not sure he was convicted, but charged for working with the Kremlin to assassinate someone. So we don't know all the details yet, but that number 26 has come up this morning. So this is a big prisoner swap involving more than, I think there may be as many as 3 Americans involved with this, the 2 that Chris mentioned for sure. And this is supposed to take place, the actual swap could take place in the next 12 to 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see that.
I'm glad that Paul Whelan will be coming home.
Paul Whelan was, they bypassed him to get the basketball player up back several months ago.
Yeah, he was a white male.
Yes.
Too bad.
Bottom of the stack. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the other thing that's been commented on, that possibly Putin has put all of this together to make, are you ready for this, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration look good? This is what the person was saying, because Putin fears Donald Trump getting back in the White House.
Where's that come from?
That was just an analyst that was on Fox this morning speculating, obviously.
Well, I hope it happens. I hope that we get our Americans home.
Yeah.
I think we all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And America has always had a policy of not negotiating with terrorists. That is, we don't get into kidnapping swaps with, not kidnapping swaps, that's the wrong way to say it. We don't trade something to get back our prisoners that terrorist organizations have taken as captives. Does that make
right,
sense?
because in that case, with terrorist organizations, you're only encouraging them to
You'll be doing
continue to kidnap people.
You'll be doing it forever.
Right.
But in this case, these are states.
Yes.
Countries trading. So, all right, well, we'll see what happens here. Next story.
Well, I mean, this could very well have been the lead based on the massive fallout.
Was it massive, Chris?
It was. It was pretty big. It had a lot of people left, right, and center talking yesterday, that being Donald Trump's appearance at a black journalist conference. Many people have said a lot of things about how the journalist treated Donald Trump. A lot of people have responded and how Trump responded to their questions. And a lot of what, don't be shocked by this, America, but a lot of what you've seen and heard on things like social media is, without a doubt, taken out of context. And I say that based on the fact that a guy named Curtis Houck at Newsbusters, I'll share a link for this in just a second, but Curtis shared a video of like the entire thing yesterday. To his credit, that's very important that he did that, because you had like the Brian Stelters of the world, former CNN hacks and whatnot, that were like sharing a video that was literally isolated down to just Trump being mean, to try to show how mean and awful Donald Trump is, they say, and therefore we shouldn't vote for him. But to give you, our listeners, a feel of the question that set all this up, I have the audio here.
Before you do that, I want to say something.
Okay.
Okay, so, and not that you haven't done an excellent job there with this massive story, Chris. But this, what you're about to hear, yesterday, former President Donald Trump went to the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago. I guess this is an annual convention that they have for black journalists, and he was on stage with 3 African American ladies who were there to interview him for an hour. Okay, so they were late. The organizers were late in getting this started. So Trump had to leave after 35 minutes because he had already committed to go to an event in Pennsylvania. But it wasn't his fault he had to leave early, okay? But what you're about to hear is this the opening?
Yes.
Okay, this is the opening. This is the opening back and forth between Trump and one of the panelists, one of the ladies interviewing him, right?
Correct.
Go.
Clip 1.
You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. Why should black voters trust you?
I don't think I've ever been asked a question so in such a horrible manner. First question. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country. Employment, including opportunity zones. Historically, black colleges and universities were out of money. They were stone cold broke, and I saved them. I have answered the question.
Trust you with another
I have
4
been
years.
the best president for the black population since Abraham Lincoln. That's my answer.
Listen, first of all, we didn't have time even.
No, it's a long clip.
The question that this journalist asked.
Are we going to play the other clip in a minute, though? The one about Kamala Harris?
We do. We have that as well.
Okay, go ahead.
The question that she started off with was a long laundry list of accusations.
Right.
Totally unfair because she says she had a long list of all your faults when it comes, all your racist examples, Mr. Trump, and then she asks a question. So if he answers the question at the end, it's like he's saying, yeah, I guess I am racist because of all the things you said. If he spends time defending himself and showing how these accusations are false, he never gets to the question.
Right.
It's totally unfair, but he handled it, I'm just going to say, he handled it like a pro and turned it around.
Right.
He's good at that. And putting the onus back on this young lady who asked the question. I thought he really did an excellent job deflecting an unfair question.
The most famous, as they say, event part of that interview yesterday, the soundbite, the takeaway.
This is fantastic.
I'm sorry. This is what you're about to hear is I would call it vintage Trump.
Yes.
Okay. This is his answer We're about to hear the
you
Q&A.
set it up, Chris.
The Q&A here.
All right, so Kamala Harris has been referred to for a couple of years now as being our first black vice president. She's
By the way,
black
she
woman,
did not show up for this event.
Correct.
She was supposed to.
She was supposed to.
Yeah, so mind you, Trump's going into a place he knows is possibly hostile. By the way, there were a lot of people cheering.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about that. There were a lot of people cheering Trump in his responses. But nonetheless, Kamala Harris, we've been told she is a black woman. She's the first black female vice president, all these things. Now, it wasn't that long ago that she herself was claiming she is the first Indian black
from India.
India vice president. Yeah, so
Elizabeth Warren was the first Indian.
That's very true. Different part of the world. But yeah, the soundbite Tim is wanting us to play here involves Trump talking about Kamala not being black. Clip 2.
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Yes. Now, to Trump's point, a lot of people are like, oh, this man's awful. The GOP needs to get rid of him yesterday. To Trump's point, I have found a video of a couple of years ago. It is Indian actress Mindy Kaling, best known as Kelly from The Office. And she had a cooking segment with Kamala Harris a few years ago, and they were talking constantly about Kamala being Indian. Clip 3.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, you know Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like the thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes. You look like the entire one half of my family.
Okay, thank you.
You do.
I've been telling people
You
we're
do.
related already,
Yeah.
so this is perfect. It's basically true. And so were you raised eating South Indian food?
South Indian food.
I got it there. I could have gone on.
Now, this was when she was running in 2020, right, for president, not now.
Yeah, and when she was elected to the Senate, a lot of left of center news outlets talked about her being the first Indian American senator, female.
Okay, yeah. Listen, it really shouldn't matter what color she is or what gender she is or anything like that. Really, the main people that make an issue of this are the liberals and the Democrats, because they want to say, look, we selected the first, and then fill in the blank on your what do you call it, politics, when you do this kind of thing.
Identity politics.
Identity politics. Okay. So I think when Trump was answering that question there yesterday at this convention, this National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago. By the way, I give him thumbs up for going to this in the first place. He didn't have to. He went in and he accepted an invitation, went and sat on the panel. It was him by himself, and just him and the three lady journalists. I didn't watch the whole interview, but he was there to answer their questions, and he did so freewheel, as Trump does, just freewheeling. Sometimes that helps, and sometimes that hurts, but that's the way he does things. But he said he was the best president for Black Americans since
It's not the first time he said that. He said it a few times. He talks up the fact that he did a lot of things.
Well, he did.
For HB.
He did. The employment rate was great for African Americans and everybody. Also, Fred, he did authorize the monies for the historically black colleges.
Yes, he said
he did do these things.
He worked with Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, and they did incredible things. It's really it is identity politics. Whatever's convenient for her, and this group was very hostile. They are. I mean, they are Democrats. These black journalists, 90% in that room. I'm not sure if they're card-carrying Democrats, but they are Democrats. By the way, Trump apparently said, I'm busy that day. Can I zoom into your event? They said, no, we're only accepting you to come in live. But they let Kamala Harris zoom in.
Yeah, because they love her.
Yes.
They want her to be elected.
Yeah.
It's not an even-handed situation.
No. The Harris Faulkner of Fox was one of the three panelists yesterday. She tried to bring the event back to the issues of the day, the economy, the border.
Right.
But those other journalists weren't interested in that. they wanted to do we gotcha questions on Mr. Trump.
Oh, listen, I've said before. Listen, there are, you can criticize President Trump for this, that, and the other, and certainly I have on some of his things he said and his behavior, which are I've considered not presidential. However, we can criticize everybody for different various reasons who are running for president or has run for president. But I will say this: it's this idea that Trump is a racist. I don't know where this comes from. Now, he made a comment about Charlottesville, Virginia. We remember that. We were saying there's good people on both sides. We can go into that. But I'm talking about in the history of his whole career, going back 40, 50 years, I never heard anything about him being a racist until he ran for president or until he got – and I was thinking to myself, well, okay, now we have a 4-year track record of when he was president. So what about his 4 years that proves he was a racist?
Yeah.
Nothing proved he was a racist. That was ridiculous, a ridiculous charge. I guess when the left runs out of things to criticize, they say, all right, what do we got? Well, let's just make up some racism charges, or let's just make up false accusations. Bring a woman up here for Kavanaugh, who says that when he was 16, he did something inappropriate with her. I mean, they just go for the bottom of the barrel issues.
Well, this is the identity politics playbook. So these black journalists from the National Association of Black Journalists interviewing, I'm talking about the two lefties interviewing President Trump, and the whole playbook of calling Trump racist. There is a reason for that, because if you're the Democratic Party, you have to keep the black vote in lockstep with your party. You cannot afford to lose a growing percentage of black voters to the Republicans, or at least a Republican like Trump. So what do you do to try to keep those folks kind of inside the fence, those black voters? You call Donald Trump a racist. The people were flipping out after this interview thing where he's talking about Kamala Harris. Makes a perfectly valid point. I didn't even know she was black. She always identified as the first Indian. Right. Then she suddenly became black. He was making a joke. She became black. Well, people flipped out because they said, well, you can be both, and what's the matter? You don't like her to be black? She has to be Indian? What Donald Trump was saying is Kamala Harris is identifying as black now, not because that's what she always identified, but because she wants the black vote.
Right. She's not after the Indian vote.
No.
It was bingo. He nailed it.
Yeah.
That they wanted to play identity politics, and Trump said, okay, you want to play that? Well, I'll play that. We'll talk about how Kamala Harris has identified herself in the past.
Yes.
And now she wants to become,
the first black female president.
Right. Now, her dad was Jamaican, right?
Yes.
Who immigrated here to
I think he was like half Jamaican, half Irish or something. But that's besides the point. Republicans don't care.
No.
But Democrats sure care.
Yeah, they bring it up all the time. We'll be back in a minute. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
In the year 1931, Aldous Huxley, the famous skeptic, wrote on the subject, Wanted a New Pleasure. In the essay, he had this to say: as far as I can see, the only possible new pleasure would be derived from the invention of a new drug which would provide a harmless substitute for alcohol. If I were a millionaire, I should endow a band of research workers to look for the ideal intoxicant. If we could sniff or swallow something that would abolish inferiority, atone us with our fellows in a glowing exultation of affection, and make life in all its aspects seem not only worth living but divinely beautiful and significant, And if this heavenly world-transforming drug were of such a kind that we could wake up next morning with a clear head and an undamaged constitution, then it seems to me that all our problems would be solved and Earth would be a paradise. Well, Huxley was hunting something that we all hunt in life. Every person seeks what he wanted. The difference comes in the methods in which we seek it. For him and countless others, the answer could be found in a drug or a bottle, some kind of magic to turn the trick. Some of the rest of us have found that which Huxley searched for, but we didn't find it in a magic of a bottle. We found it in the miracle of a cross. We followed the little Jewish tent maker's advice. Don't get drunk with wine, he said, which will only ruin you. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. Abolish inferiority? We have indeed rid ourselves of it by hearing him tell us that we're the light of the world, the salt of the earth. And when he compares us with terms like those, we cannot feel inferior. Affection toward our fellows? We found that too. You see, the Galilean has taught us to do exactly what Mr. Huxley wanted, to love one another. He set the example. He loved us. Greater love has no man than this, he said. And then, because of his love, he faced that cross. And something to make life more than mere existing? Some who follow the Galilean can say with him, "For this purpose I have come." And making life beautiful? There's nothing more beautiful in all of life than to see it as his creation. To know that he is there, behind it all, full of love for us even when we don't deserve it, makes life eternally beautiful. He is, indeed, the source of all beauty. A clear head and undamaged constitution, well, he gives that too. Lets you think clearly and live with a constitution written by the author of life. Mr. Huxley kept hunting for that magic drug. On November the 22nd, 1963, 31 years after his wish, Huxley tried a new drug called LSD, which many thought to be the answer to his wish. His wife administered the drug to Huxley, dying of cancer. It was the last drug Huxley ever experimented with. You see, it was a one-way trip.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not extinguish. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow weak or discouraged before he has established justice on the earth. In his law the islands will put their hope. Isaiah 42, 3 and 4.
American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of Today's Issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of Today's Issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Tim, Ed, Fred, and Chris. And we have a popular podcast on our AFR.net website. Sandy Rios 24/7, which many of you listen to. Sandy, she does sometimes three, mostly podcasts a week that you can access and listen to. Sandy was on with us for 10 years on the morning show, 7 to 8 Central Time. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Tim. Can I correct you, Sir Boss?
Yeah, you go right ahead.
No, I always do 3, and actually last week I did 4. So there's always 3, at least 3
always
podcasts.
3.
And I've been really covering what's happening in the news a lot more than just interviews lately because of all that's happening. So anyway.
Yeah. I didn't want to call you a slacker there.
No,
Sandy may be a lot of things,
don't.
but she's not a slacker.
She is not.
Not a slacker. Well, all right. We don't really have a preset.
Can I just ask her to?
I want to ask her why she's a racist. Because she's come on here. We're 4. I'm playing off the Trump interview yesterday.
Yes.
We're four white men. I just wanted to, Sandy is a white woman, but I just want to ask her, well, I guess why she's a sexist. Defend yourself. Well, I'm married to a man, so.
Oh, my goodness.
Not me. Sandy is. I'm speaking for her. All right, can we rewind this thing?
That's gonna be a right-wing watch.
You can rewind.
I've done the proverbial stepped in right here. Okay. All right, Sandy. What is your number one story you're covering right now?
Well, I'm actually, now that it looks like Kamala is going to be the candidate, unless something weird happens. Speaking of weird, it's a popular word right now.
Yes. Right.
I'm really looking into her a lot, so I've been getting some background on her, and then also Venezuela. There's so many things happening. It's very hard
talk
to keep
about
up with it,
Venezuela. Talk about Venezuela, if you would, because we haven't covered that much on this show because there's been so much happening here domestically, and we've been talking about Israel. We haven't really talked about Venezuela. And tell our listeners what's happening there.
Well, I can't do a deep dive because I'm in prep, but I know in general. Basically, the history of Venezuela, it was the richest country in South America. Oil beyond comprehension. A lot of American oil companies worked down there, and it was a beautiful country. And then Hugo Chavez came in to run. And what they did was, this was kind of a template for what's been happening around the world, and some could argue happening here. They just developed this new template in conjunction with Castro and the Cubans after the Soviet Union broke up, and that was taking over countries not through violence like they'd done in South America and Africa, or these coups, but through the democratic system. And so that's what Chavez did. They corrupted the democratic election system, and actually Dominion voting systems were implemented down there. It's just the strangest story. I guess strange seems to be like the normal story right now. Nevertheless, so Chavez won. He immediately nationalized businesses. He eliminated the Supreme Court. He shut down the houses of Congress, or whatever they called theirs, and began to rule as a dictator. And then people began to starve, and inflation, and they couldn't get medicine, and crime in the streets. So it was just a wild city. And people fought back. They tried to take back their country. And they've been trying. The timeline's not in my head right now, but this is, I'd say, for the last 8-10 years, maybe, I'm guessing. They've been trying to get their country back. Of course, thousands and thousands have fled, and many are here. They're really now Maduro.
I'm just going to just a personal note, real quickly. Sandy's on the phone. So she usually joins us on the Comrex, so it's a little bit more. But anyway, just a personal note.
Is it hard to hear?
Well, a little bit. I was in, we had a lady here who had a restaurant about 2 blocks from where we sit right now, who was Venezuelan. And Alice and I would visit her restaurant for lunch a couple times a week. This was a couple of years ago, but she would tell us these horror stories of her home country. She would almost break down crying because of what her family and what her friends were going through back home in Venezuela, which, as you said, Sandy, was a very wealthy, beautiful country, rich in natural resources and so forth. And what is his name? How do you pronounce his name? Maduro?
Well, this now is the different. I was talking about Hugo Chavez.
Yes,
this is when this first happened.
Yes.
Right now it's Maduro. Maduro he was like the heir apparent. I think he was a bus driver. And because of them messing around with the voting, he was elected probably 8 years ago. And now he was up for re-election. They still pretend like they have elections, but the people just have had it. And they have been in the streets. You should see the aerial views.
Right.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people protesting. They came out to vote, and Maduro did not win by all accounts, and yet they took the election and claimed they won. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Sandy. So now he's going around killing people that have spoken up and opposed him. So that's what's happening in Venezuela.
Sandy, I think it's really interesting that the new modus operandi is to call your opposition a threat to democracy. I'm thinking, of Justin Trudeau in Canada. Remember the truckers' dispute? These are people with unacceptable views. So we're going to take over their bank accounts. What we've been hearing down here, a justice system used to go after your political enemies. How often do we hear from the Biden White House, we're working against the threats to democracy? What I'm finding is that these people accuse their opposition of the things that they themselves are guilty of. Am I overstating something here?
Oh no, Fred, you're spot on. This is a device, and it's just but it's been implemented here for a long time. You know, the Democrats are the personification here in this country of the communist left, and as a matter of fact, Kamala Harris herself is a communist, and I don't use that term lightly. I mean, she is. I mean, I say that about Barack Obama too, because his mentor was Frank Marshall Davis, and he was a communist member of the Communist Party, and that was Barack Obama's mentor. There's a lot more reasons, but Kamala Harris' father was a communist professor on the West Coast, and her family, communism goes back a long way.
Yeah, that's
so
accurate.
She is.
Yeah. I would say this, Sandy, talking about Kamala Harris, you said she's a communist. Now, she, as far as I know, she's not a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, but she has communistic views for certain. I didn't know much. I mean, I knew she ran for president in 2020 and got like 2 or 3% of the Democrat vote. Democrat Party didn't even want her to be their nominee. I mean, she was like she withdrew her, closed down her campaign before the first primary took place. I mean, it was that bad. Remember, she went after Joe Biden, called him a racist. Remember that? But let me just tell you the 2 points that you to sort of go to what you said, Sandy, about her being communist, because I know maybe there are people saying, "Oh, you're right wingers. You always call people communists." Well, okay. I heard interviews with Kamala Harris the last couple of days, where number one, she says she is good with getting rid of private health insurance.
Yep.
You saw that, Ed?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you guys see that?
We have some audio if you want to do it.
Yeah.
Of that?
Yes.
All right, because in her own words.
It's Jake Tapper and Kamala talking
All
about
right,
single
go ahead.
payers and health insurance. Clip 8.
You support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially
Correct.
co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor
Yes.
on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance.
The idea is that everyone gets access to medical care, and you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Well, eliminate all the
private health insurance.
Private enterprise.
She's for government socialized medicine and get rid of the private.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then guns. She basically believed in she said if the Congress doesn't do it, I will.
Right. She's talked about
mandatory
confiscation of the past.
buyback.
Yeah, mandatory buyback.
Did we have that?
No, we don't. But I will say she also considers everything a, quote, assault weapon, which is vague on purpose, so that way everything.
She's listener. Governor DeSantis of Florida said she's a, quote, San Francisco Democrat.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what she is, and which the equivalent of a communist, basically. But she's for confiscating. When you have a buyback of guns, for those who don't know, this is where the government says a city or mostly cities say, okay, people bring in your guns and we'll give you money for them, right? Mm-hmm. Which is voluntary. But what she's talking about is, no, it won't be voluntary. It will be mandatory. Well, if you're going to pick people mandatorily bring in their guns for a government buyback, that is confiscation. Is that
right?
Ed? Is that
no,
not?
that is confiscation. The reason it's a buyback, and we can get Sandy's take on this. The reason it's a buyback is they're trying to make it look like, hey, we are giving you the money back that you spent on it, but it's the same as a confiscation. Because the question is, well, what if I don't want to turn my gun in and get money for it? Well, then we're going to send
because it's mandated.
We're going to send the feds in.
Yeah,
right.
What do you think, Sandy?
Go ahead.
Well, I just think it's an interesting correlation. One of the reasons that the Venezuelans right now cannot fight back and why Maduro's taking power again and going house to house, torturing and killing people, is because they took away their guns. They took away their guns.
Good point.
Under Maduro, they took away all the citizens' guns, so the citizens have no defense. The second thing I'd like to say, Tim, just so you know, because I think it's important, when I say Kamala is a communist, and when I say that about Obama, it's because of verification. It's not just a general statement. There are links to Communist Party organizations to Kamala and her family and her father.
Right.
And she's not going to be carrying a card because that's not the way they operate.
Right.
But it is true. I just wanted people to know that there's all kinds of stuff coming out, which I'll be sharing on the show, maybe even tomorrow. But and the other thing, sorry, because I'm on a roll here, we are finding out that all those protests in Washington last week, where they burned the Hamas flag and where they shouted Hamas is coming and they shouted Allahu Akbar and on, we know all of, I'm sure you guys have followed that.
Burn the American flag.
Terrible.
You said burn the Hamas flag. Burn the American flag, yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you. We know now that we have traced this to Communist Party membership. The press is not reporting this. There are all kinds of communist organizations in this country, communist affiliated, and actually there is Open Secrets? There is a whole list of them. I just had a briefing on this. They were the ones actually behind this, funding it. And, of course, there are, I could go on, and I'm not prepared to talk details because I haven't prepped enough. But I'm just telling you, this is verified, but the press is not, they're not covering that part. This is what we call the red-green axis. It's the red, meaning communist. Remember, all those protesters in D.C. wore red shirts. And the little logo on their shirt is traced back to a communist organization. I'm just telling you. And the green, of course, is the Islamic. So that it's the red and the green working together.
Both those ideologies are totalitarian. So it wouldn't, and they both hate capitalism. They both hate Christianity. Sandy. Okay, so folks, what you need to do is go to the website afr.net. If you want to get Sandy's podcast 3 times a week, sometimes 4, she says, you can go there at afr.net. You can see the banner. It says Sandy Rios 24/7, and then you can listen anytime you want. That's the beauty of the podcast. She can go as long or as little as she needs to with the podcast, but also you can listen anytime you want to at the afr.net website, afr.net. Sandy, thanks so much for being on with us, and we look forward to talking to you again.
You're welcome, Tim.
Okay.
My pleasure. Love you guys.
Okay.
It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Amen.
Thank you, Sandy.
Take care, Sandy.
Sandy Rios. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Chris, next story.
Keeping it with health care for a second, because this is going to come at taxpayer expense, possibly, if Harris is our president in the not-too-distant future. She has long been an advocate for paying for people in prisons to get transgender procedures, which means we're going to pay for it. And to prove that, I have clip 7 here.
When I was Attorney General, I learned that the California Department of Corrections, which was a client of mine, I didn't get to choose my clients.
Right, a client of the Attorney General.
A client of the Attorney General, of the Office of Attorney General, that they were standing in the way of surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. And there was a specific case. And when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that that transgender woman got the services she was deserving. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need. And I believe it was not only, I know it was historic in California, but I believe actually it may have been one of the first, if not the first in the country, where I pushed for that policy.
All right, stop right there. She's not talking about transgendered getting treated for cancer.
No.
Or, or COVID,
Correct.
Whatever. That's not what we're talking about here. What she's talking about is she's proudly saying, I'm for forcing taxpayers to mutilate the genitals of females or males if they want to be the opposite sex.
Under the premise that healthcare is a constitutional
And that's
right.
that's a healthcare issue, she calls it.
Right.
Am I right?
Right. That's what she was saying.
She's proud of it.
She is all. I mentioned this yesterday. She is all in.
Yeah.
All these issues that we were talking about, the transgender issue, she's all in. So, I mean, folks just need to understand the Democratic Party, I'm not sure there are any moderates or old school classical
They've
liberals.
got rid of them.
They're just nowhere to be found. Joe Manchin might have been one of the last ones. He's now declaring himself an independent. This political party has been taken over by the quote-unquote progressives / socialists with a social agenda that is, frankly, evil, biblically speaking.
Yeah.
Absolute support for abortion to the moment of birth, full in on the LGBTQ agenda. These people are in favor of spending your money for transgender surgeries. They are in favor of schools protecting kids who want to be
come for your guns and get rid of your private health insurance too.
Who are wanting to kids who want to identify as transgender and not telling the parents, confiscating guns, the whole bit.
Yeah.
This party has been taken over by that wing of the party, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas. That is what we're looking at.
And that's that's what Kamala Harris represents. Joe Biden, Fred, go ahead, but go ahead. What you want to say?
We're talking about the radical left here.
Right.
You know, I detest this description, calling them progressives.
Right.
I know you were quoting people there.
Right.
They're not progressive.
Way it's sensitive.
Yeah.
He wants-
They're not progressive.
Right.
They're not moving
No,
the country forward. They want to take this country to a place where they control everything. They control. Kamala Harris, this montage that's out there right now of her positions that she has articulated through the years. Do you want to control what people eat? Yes. I want to force people to cut back on beef consumption under the guise of climate change.
She said that too?
Oh, yes. It's all out there. Now she's trying to deny almost all of these things.
They're going to try to remake her image.
Yes.
Unbelievable. I saw the other day, yesterday, I was reading about how they're trying to, and listen, I understand why they're trying to remake her image, because there's a reason she failed miserably as a Democrat candidate for president, is because for a variety of reasons, but even her cackle, which that's kind of her trademark, actually, huh? I think I'd run with that. You know, if she has to leave politics and does a stand-up routine or something like that, go with the cackle. But the cackle that she is known for, they said she's dialed that back, and she's changed that to a smile, which is much more effective in terms of having people listen to you and the image people have of you. You don't want the image people have of you as somebody who has a terrible cackle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they don't listen to what you say hardly. They just go, that's an annoying voice that I can't listen to. You know what I'm saying? So maybe some people say that about mine. I don't know. Huh? But they're going to try to remake her image, and the left-wing media in this country are going to try to soften her communist ideology. And listen, her dad was a radical, came to America from at least a radical at that time, in terms of his Marxist beliefs about economics and so forth and so on.
Let me just add too that the news media over the last 3-4 decades we have seen a sea change in the makeup of what we call the mainstream media. Those offices, the New York Times, ABC News, they are filling up with young people who have been trained in our colleges and universities to hate America and to activists do something about it by making sure they're reporting what goes on the air, helps the cause. All right. And folks, this is an existential war. One side or the other is going to win this thing. And we are going to see, as Governor Ron DeSantis tweeted out, I think over the weekend, X'd out, whatever, that we are going to be there's going to be gaslighting going on. I know we use that term a lot, but they are going to present, the Democratic Party and the media are going to present a Kamala Harris that appears middle of the road and moderate, but she is a radical. This country, if she wins, and that side of the Democratic Party continues to control Washington, D.C., this country is
it will be fundamentally changed.
It will be fundamentally changed, and we may never get it back to where it was before.
You look at their agenda. I mean, Joe Biden's proposal this week to change how the Supreme Court operates. What does he want to do? Term limits so that they can get people on that court that agree with their political agenda. It's control the courts, control the media, control
and
the
ironically, that's what they claim Trump is in favor
Right.
of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everything they accuse the right of, they are guilty of.
One of the things that stood out to me with Biden pushing Supreme Court reforms, media ran really hard with the fact that he wants like a code of ethics at the Supreme Court, because Biden said in a clip we had a couple of days ago that they have rules they're not following and whatnot. Biden said nothing about people like Justice Ginsburg hearing and deciding on the marriage case.
Same-sex marriage.
After she had presided over a same-sex marriage case, she should have had to sit out that case based on the fact that clearly she was not being objective there.
Well,
he didn't say anything until they ruled in a way he didn't agree with.
With lefties, it's oftentimes rules for thee and not for me.
Right.
Yes.
And when you control information with your friends in the media,
and this
there you go.
This list of rules for behavior on the Supreme Court, we all know how this works. You have groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center who put organizations like us, American Family Association, other conservative and or Christian groups, into the category of hate groups. And they describe hate behavior and hate speech. Those kinds of rules can be used against Supreme Court justices.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have Clarence Thomas's wife attends a Bible study, and it's at a church or a pastor conducts the Bible study who's on the SPLC hate list.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a violation of the code of conduct and ethics. We're going to have to remove Clarence Thomas. This is what we're headed for if these people get or continue in power.
And while we have not even gotten close to talking about this, it's pretty safe to say that whoever wins this November will decide probably one, if not two, Supreme Court justice situations.
Yeah,
in the not too distant future.
It's been rumored that Clarence Thomas wants to retire. I don't know if he'd retire if Kamala Harris won the presidency. And maybe Samuel Alito. Those are the two rock stars of the Supreme Court, in my opinion, right now.
In terms of constitutional judges.
Yeah. But anyway, so much at stake with the election coming up. There always is with whoever the president is, but this ain't your grandfather's Democrat Party, people.
Right.
These folks they're far left. They're San Francisco left.
Yeah.
So many of them, and which is totally different than, say, as I say, the era of John F. Kennedy's Democrat Party, which would be considered very right-wing now.
Yeah.
We'll be back.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
The climax of the book of Exodus, the Creator God came to dwell with his people. You can't approach the holiness of God however you want. Jesus understood this when he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Friends of Israel, bringing biblical truth about Israel and the Messiah. Saturdays, 2 p.m. Central on AFR.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, almost DPU. New details emerging about the prisoner swap involving the U.S. and Russia. Edward Lawrence has more from the White House.
This swap involves multiple prisoners on both sides. The U.S. getting exactly what it wanted, Evan Gerskovich as well as Paul Whelan, and they'll have to give up multiple folks related to this. Now, we can tell you that this involves multiple countries, and this Representative Mike Lawler telling Fox that we're talking about countries like Germany, Slovenia, and Belarus, including the United States. We'll have to see exactly what we are all giving up for this. There will likely be some criticism from Capitol Hill that the U.S. did not get enough for what they've gave up. Others will say this worked out perfectly. This also could be a signal in the change of relationship between the U.S. and Russia going forward. It also could be a warning and telling the Russian president that, hey, he can take Americans and get what he wants.
3 men who planned the September 11th terrorist attacks are getting a plea deal from the Department of Defense, and some lawmakers are speaking out against it. New York Congressman Mike Lawler weighed in.
23 years later, we're still losing first responders to 9/11 health-related illnesses on a monthly basis. In many respects, it's evil, and it's a betrayal for these 9/11 families.
Florida Congressman Greg Steube.
After 20 years, I mean, why is it taking this long? And you have the Biden DOJ giving a sweetheart plea deal to terrorists who are responsible with killing almost 3,000 Americans on American soil.
Former President and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump participating in a Q&A with the National Association of Black Journalists in Chicago Wednesday, commenting on Vice President Kamala Harris's ethnic background.
I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
Civil Rights Commissioner and Fox News contributor Jack Brewer says Trump is only stating what other people won't talk about, and he doesn't understand why anyone would say they are insulted by that.
To come in and say that race only matters when we want it to matter, so that you can go around and be an Indian woman for your entire political career, but then all of a sudden you want to pander to black people. Well, folks aren't going to just take that. Donald Trump was right about standing up for what he saw, like the rest of the country saw. I just watched the CNN special coming here that was bragging about Kamala Harris being the first Indian American vice president. They ran specials about that, and so why can't this man say that? And so I thought he was dead on.
A pro-life activist woman disputes her conviction and sentence for violating the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. Chris Woodward has more.
Bevelyn Beatty Williams was found guilty in a New York courtroom last February and was recently sentenced to 41 months in prison. The U.S. Attorney says Williams repeatedly intimidated and interfered with individuals seeking and providing critical reproductive health care services. She did so by physically blocking access to clinics, threatening staff, and by force. But Williams told AFN that's not true.
The reality is the FACE Act is supposed to be to protect anyone from obstructing or blocking any entrance at any form of time. Well, on this particular 2 days of a rally, the Planned Parenthood had requested for pro-abortion protesters to come to our rally, and they actually are caught on video blocking the door. They were not held accountable for blocking the door because they're for abortion. So FACE is supposed to be for those, whoever blocks the door, whether they're for or against abortion, are supposed to be held accountable for blocking and standing in front of any door. There are pictures of multiple pro-abortion protesters standing behind me, and I'm actually standing in front of them as they blocked the door, but I was the one charged.
Williams is appealing, and with a new lawyer as opposed to the court-appointed counsel that Williams says chose not to fight by displaying what she called clear evidence that would have proven her innocence. I'm Chris Woodward.
American Family News is online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty P.
Join us for the second annual AFA at the Ark.
Myself and Tony Ventagliano, his family, and my family, and several of the other staff members at AFA.
Tickets include transportation from the hotel to the museums, both tours, and special presentations by Answers in Genesis speakers. AFA has reserved a block of rooms at a discounted price with the Marriott Cincinnati Airport Hotel. To register, go to afa.net/events and join us for AFA at the Ark.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman. president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim Wildman, and we hope you're having a good day. You're listening to AFR. Tim here with Ed Battagliano. Good morning again, Ed.
Hey, good morning.
Fred Jackson.
Howdy.
And also Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Morning, everybody.
Joins us. How you doing, Brother Steve?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Okay, I got to we all have our ways to escape reality.
Does it involve chemicals at all?
Well, if you call college football a chemical.
Okay.
But
Just checking.
Every day I'm checking this because college football starts. It's kind of like you with hockey season.
Yeah.
College football starts in 23 days and 53 minutes, 41, 40, 39, 38. Look, I got this clock on my.
But who's counting, right? There's an actual clock.
Oh yeah, you can type in college football countdown and it'll tell you how long till college football starts. Anyway,
you got a whole new thing going in the SEC this year. It's going to be interesting
to
see.
The wise people at the SEC thought, our football is not tough enough.
Right.
We need to add Oklahoma and Texas. That's what we need to do. We need to beef up our
Are there going to be any schools outside the Southeastern Conference?
What do you mean? I know. Well, the college sports is going to these super conferences. I mean, the Big Ten.
Well, here's my question.
You got Oregon playing Ohio State in a conference game now.
How many schools have departed? What was it, the Big 12 or whatever? That kind of Texas.
Pac-12 doesn't exist now.
Yeah, Pac-12 doesn't. But, I mean, all these schools that have gravitated towards the Southeastern Conference over the last decade or two, and now they're adding Oklahoma and Texas?
Yeah, most of those are regional. I mean, you got South Carolina, Florida, and then you go all the way to Texas A&M and Missouri. Maybe Missouri's a little bit of a reach in terms of geography. That's more of a heartland Midwestern state. But then you got Oklahoma and Texas coming to the Southeastern. You're going to end up with 2 or 3 super conferences before it's all.
It's all follow the money.
Huh?
Follow the money. It's all about TV deals.
Yes, oh yeah. All right. So anyway, but college football fans, it starts in 23 days, 51 minutes, and 49, 48, 47 seconds. I don't know who the first game is, but anyway.
Well, listen, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I might have preached, Tim, I think you're too obsessed with football. Now, with as crazy as the world gets, now I'm going to preach, Tim, you need to watch some football because otherwise you'll crack up.
I think since you've been paying more attention to hockey, you're going to preach that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we will. You got to have some kind of therapy.
You got to have some way of letting off steam.
Huh?
Yeah.
So.
And let me just say, my father's generation, that was kicking the dog. At least
we changed that.
Yes, at least we're a little bit more spectator oriented.
Unless you talk about kicking the Bulldogs, but that's different.
No.
Now, that's my school.
I know that's
of course Mississippi State. Of course, you got the Georgia Bulldogs.
I know. I was kind of
Fresno State.
I have never.
I was kind of digging your way, Tim.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What did you say, Ed?
I've never kicked a dog. I'm just wanting to make clear.
Yes.
All right, Steve, what's your first story?
All right, let's just have a couple more details about this prisoner swap. We can just hit on this and then move on if you want. But apparently it was a 24-prisoner exchange between 3 countries, Germany and the United States and Russia. Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan, the 2 journalists, are involved and, in fact, have left Ankara, Turkey. They're on a plane headed to, our way. It took months of negotiation. The Russian was unwilling to give up the swap unless it included Vadim Kraslikov, a Russian operative and hitman who was serving a life sentence in Germany for gunning down an opponent to the Kremlin on the streets of Berlin. Germany was a little hesitant.
Yeah.
As part of the exchange, Russia has also agreed to release a dozen German nationals who are being held as political prisoners. Now, this article from ABC News is very strong, saying that Joe Biden was personally involved in the details of this. Apparently, all this happened between like 10 and 4 because he was very involved and very awake. And in fact, right now they're waiting for, he's going to be making some comments on the about this.
President Biden.
President Biden.
Listen, I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the liberal on the panel again.
Yeah,
I want to congratulate the Biden administration for getting Gershkovich and Paul Whelan freed. This is a good thing. I do think that Russia basically captures these people to be used later on as bargaining chips. So I don't think Russia's doing anyone any favors. I think they probably illegitimately snatch Americans and people from other countries for future exchanges. But this is a good thing to get these folks returned. So
on my bingo card, someone in the next day or two is going to come out and say that Kamala Harris was the prisoner swap czar. I'm just saying that's going to happen.
I listen. That is funny, okay. But I wouldn't doubt that the Biden administration and the Democrats tried to shoehorn Kamala Harris into this equation to give her some credit.
And from now on, everything is going to be the Biden-Harris administration did this or that. Or if
they're going to just say Harris,
right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
By the way, we're talking about somebody who has not had one vote cast for her in any election outside of her senatorial election in California. I'm just saying. I guess.
And her AG election.
What?
She was elected AG, I think.
Yes, AG. Talking about of California.
California.
I'm just saying she hasn't been formally selected by the Democrats, right?
No.
That'll have to come at the convention.
She did. You could argue she gained votes as a vice presidential candidate. Now, whether she won that election or not is up for debate.
Oh, you're talking about 2020?
Yeah, 2020.
What will she have to do to get that at that convention? Does anybody know? Can anybody?
Well, the delegates will vote for her.
Yeah. It's been set up. It's been arranged.
But they're committed to Biden right now.
I think
since
since he's dropped out, they've been released. I think.
Yes.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. What if somebody else tries to challenge? Think that'll happen or no?
I did hear that at one point Joe Manchin was saying that he was going to run as a centrist.
They won't let him back in, though.
No. Well, he has dropped that bid. He never really had the bid, but he said he was going to, then he said he wasn't.
Any Democrat that would dare voice that, you would not hear from.
Right. Maybe literally.
Yeah.
The Clintons are still in charge.
I mean, they might be disappeared.
Yes.
All
I
right.
just want to make the point that I did not directly accuse the Clintons. That was Steve Jordahl.
No, that's the way democracy works with the Democrats.
Yes.
Steve, what's your next story?
All right. So we've been watching the Olympics here, and it's been really the women's gymnastics team won gold.
I haven't watched. Have you watched?
Yeah, I have been.
I haven't been watching.
I watched.
Maybe I should have boycotted it after the opening.
Well, it's up to each person. I may watch some next week. The track and field is what I'm really most interested in.
Well, Simone Biles is going to start her quest for all-around gymnast, the gymnast all-around champion, and then individual apparatus. Here today she's competing.
You know what that is, Steve? What's an individual apparatus,
That
Steve?
means, okay, so
describe that for us.
The team competes. The team competed on Tuesday night. To the best of my knowledge, how you did on those individual apparatuses as an individual allows you to compete on those individual apparatuses now, because we're done with the team competition. Now it's
you sound like Kamala Harris.
I do.
I was going to say, this is the way I used to answer essay questions in high school. Well, when we describe what an
individual apparatus,
is, the apparatus.
If you turn it upside down, it looks like an individual apparatus underwater.
Looks like an apparatus.
And some people use the word apparati.
Yes.
Apparatus. Okay. You're talking about like the balance beam and
yes,
and
have the balance beam,
parallel bars and all those things.
Uneven parallel bars, the balance beam, the
rings. Is that the?
No, that's the men's.
Okay.
Yeah.
The women don't do any of the thing on the
women
rings?
don't do rings. They do the pommel horse and they do floor exercises.
Oh, okay.
The pommel horse.
I didn't know that.
You ever tried a pommel horse?
I was pretty good on the pommel horse. I'm not kidding. We used to do. I
wouldn't advocate for men doing a pommel horse.
They do.
They do.
For many reasons.
Yeah, they do.
I was good at it. We used to do it. Listen, okay, you guys are all mocking me, all right? Okay, but now, when I was in high school.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Are you serious, Clark?
We had an entire quarter, like we had quarters where we did different things. And for an entire quarter, we would do those kinds of events with apparatuses.
Yeah.
And the pommel horse was one of them.
So the men, if I'm not mistaken, compete on the parallel bars, which are 2 bars, which are about like 8 feet off the ground or so. And the rings.
We did that. We did the parallel bars. We did all that.
They have I don't know what they call the bar that's just like the uneven bars, but it's just the one bar where they do the swinging things, and then the pommel horse and floor exercises. So anyway.
Where were we?
Listen.
We were talking Olympics.
Yeah, where were we? I was in New England doing the pommel horse while y'all were down here in the South, and for PE, you shot raccoons and possums.
That is an insulting geographical stereotype that I resent. Although most people would say to you, yeah, so what's wrong with that?
So, like my wife always says, yeah, problem? What's the problem here?
I'm not saying if you intended to insult me, it wasn't.
To my wife's family and all my friends and church folks and even my kids, I apologize for the southern slur.
Right. You know you're not moving anytime soon.
To all my friends, and then Brent Creeley.
Shooting raccoons. Okay,
that was a cheap shot. Yes, it was. But I was frankly tired of all the smirks I saw around here when I mentioned Ed Vitagliano on the pommel horse.
Well, I've known you 40 years or something like that. I never knew you had time. You spent time on the pommel horse.
I spent plenty of third period in high school on the pommel horse.
Is that the one where you? It's a beam with handles.
No, it's an oblong padded, what they call a horse, and it has the 2
handles.
How you
on
spell it? I'm gonna look it up.
Pommel.
Pommel.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get on anything that has the word pommel. Personally, that just sounds
under
bad.
Images.
Okay, go to images. A pommel horse.
So this
it does have handles.
Yeah, this is one of the stories now. There's a guy that the United States brought.
Pretty amazing.
His name is Stephen.
Thank you, Tim.
Stephen Nadorsky, I think.
Hey.
Anyway, his sole job was the pommel horse routine. He didn't do anything else. He sat around for the whole Olympics until he won this gymnast. He looks kind of geeky, wears glasses and everything.
Oh, and he stared at it. He would stare at it for a couple of hours or something before the event started.
Well, he just sat. That's all he had to do is just think about his routine because he had to, and he had to nail it.
His name is Stephen. Well, what's his name?
Nagorsky. What is it?
Stephen Nadorsky.
Nadorsky. Yeah, I knew his dad, Bobby Nagorsky. He was,
all right, so Ed.
Anyway, he hit his routine, and he got the men the bronze, but that's his sole job at the Olympics was that one 40
event.
Seconds.
Do you have abs like this guy? This is amazing.
I did in high school, Tim. Hey, listen. I currently have washboard abs, but I have a load of towels in there right now. So,
hey, all right. So, Fred and I and Steve will take you out to dinner at the restaurant of your choice with Diane. If you will give us a picture of you on the pommel horse that we can put on our Today's Issues Facebook page.
I'm sorry, but I must have forgotten my cell phone that day in high school.
In 1969,
what was I supposed to do?
74.
Hand a Kodak camera to one of my friends. Hey, take a picture.
I thought
of me.
somebody may have taken a picture because someday I want to prove to my grandkids I did this.
All right, Tim. I will reinforce your offer, but because there are no pictures,
But surely there's a yearbook picture of you on the pommel horse.
If you would purchase the pommel horse,
Put
put it in the parking lot,
Oh,
and we'll see what Ed can do.
Yeah,
We will set new ratings for this
I
show.
turned 66 this month. Yeah, I'm going to get on
picture
a
the pommel horse on the radio. I'm not sure how that works.
in the parking lot.
And we will have an ambulance close by.
Let me tell you, you guys making all these big shot offers. I'll give you $1 million, Ed, if you can do. Yeah,
Provide a picture.
We all know it's not going to happen. There's no picture.
Funny story. My parents. My dad was taking his grandkids. This would be my cousin's kids. They took them out for bowling, right? And Dad's always like this. One of the guys, the grandkids got one of those what they call 7-10 split, whatever the hardest thing in bowling. And Dad said to his grandson, "I will pay for your college education if you knock that down." And then he knocked it down.
Wow.
And so a week later, they sent him a brochure from a beauty college.
A beauty college. Listen, I led the league in scoring in street hockey in high school.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
league.
The league. We had a
Street
league.
hockey.
We had a league, high school league.
Instead of ice hockey?
Yeah, it was intramural. But you all don't doubt that, do you?
Well,
this is a lot of athletic accomplishments that I never knew about you that I'm trying to process. I'm trying to see you in a different light.
I didn't always look like this, Tim. That's the point we're trying to make here.
Next story, Steve.
Well, no, it's the same story. We haven't gotten
same
the story yet.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Steve. We'll let you tell the story.
One of the stories coming out of the Olympics is in women's boxing, which some people say shouldn't be there in the first place. Not nice to see women get hit. But in this boxing match, there are two transgender dudes, guys who think they're or are trying to pass as women who have entered. One of them, his name is Iman Khalif, had a match yesterday against Italy's Angela Carini. The match lasted a whole 46 seconds before Carini threw in the towel, went to her corner and said, "I can't do this." She said she'd never been hit so hard at all. And she went to the mat. She was in tears for having to give up. I saw a press conference afterwards where she showed a picture of her recently deceased father that she was competing for, and the fact that, she couldn't get any farther than that. She was heartbroken. The transgender guy, Iman, tried to come over and pat her or give her. She wanted nothing to do with him. She just turned. She was so upset. These two guys are now both of these guys have been disqualified by the International Boxing Association and their championships
because they got XY chromosomes.
That would be why.
Yeah.
And they put out a statement saying that we disqualified both Lin Yuting and
who let them in then? Who let them in the Olympic Games then?
The Olympic boxing body, the Olympic Boxing Committee. Each individual Olympic committee, can decide on their own whether or not they will allow.
Listen, I felt so bad for this Italian young lady. By the way, I don't know what I think of women's boxing. I mean, you never see it till the Olympics gets here, right? I guess the Olympics have that. I mean, the women have that sport where they try to kill each other.
Oh, yeah, the MMA, you mean?
In the cage. Yeah, that's
Mixed
different than
martial arts.
boxing. But I will say this, in this particular boxing that they're doing in the Olympics, they do wear headgear. So they're protected. Okay, so it's, to me, other people may say, well, this doesn't matter. To me, that makes it more acceptable because it's more of an athletic competition like judo or something like that than it is just trying to.
More acceptable that they're boxing at all, or that they're transgender?
No, that they're wearing headgear.
That makes it more acceptable for transgenders to box?
No,
or
he's
to
talking
box
about
at all?
women boxing.
Okay.
I'm talking about for me personally, as an observer of a women's boxing. Again, we never hear about this till the Olympics. Nobody has a countdown clock for women's boxing season.
Right. No, we don't.
No. So you never hear about it. I didn't even know. Quite frankly, I forgot it even existed. But what I'm saying is, whatever you may think of women boxing in the first place, the story here is the Olympic Committee for Boxing is so woke, they're letting men beat up on these women, these girls, and it was so sad to see this young lady from Italy yesterday because she's brokenhearted. You could see her. If you go watch it, you got this guy who says he's a girl, and he could kill her. I mean, he's like standing 3 or 4 inches above her, maybe taller than that.
Clearly stronger.
Clearly stronger. And she bowed out after 46 seconds because I think she feared for her life.
She got popped a couple times.
Yes.
And she afterwards said, I've never been hit that hard.
Well, and she said, this is so unfair. She told her trainer, this is so unfair.
She's practiced and trained for this?
For a lifetime.
And done this for her dad?
Right.
And then she gets...
this is her moment.
This
is her moment. This is her moment. She's trained. She's trained for many years. This is her moment. She goes in trying to win a medal in the Olympics, and she gets put up against a dude.
Yeah, I'm not saying the bout was a draw. I'm saying in the competition, she gets the draw.
Right.
She gets to fight a guy.
Yeah.
First fight.
Yeah,
right.
But she's brokenhearted because you can imagine all the hours and hours and hours, years that she's put into this, getting to this level. Here's her moment, and then they put her up against a guy who says he's a girl. Go ahead, Fred.
Here's one of the big aspects that really bothers me about all of this. The feminist groups who claim to
where are they?
Who claim to speak to protect the rights of women are silent.
Right.
They don't care.
No.
They're all in on the idea that some guy can simply claim to be a girl, and they are supporting that guy who went into that ring. And this little Italian girl, she suffered a couple of serious hits.
Yes.
She's.
I think she quit because she feared for her life.
She did.
Yeah.
She did. But the feminist groups aren't speaking out to protect her. Same thing is happening in this country.
I'll leave it to J.K. Rowling.
Yes, who did speak out.
Yes.
She's got a lot of money she can afford to.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think she is. I think she's a person of principle on this issue.
Yeah, she is.
Not just money.
No.
She can't be canceled.
That's
what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
She's a entertainment celebrity that can't be canceled. So she feels. But J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, she's very vocal against the transgendered movement, basically trying to equate themselves with real females.
Yes, and the thing is J.K. Rowling is a feminist.
Right.
She wants women to have opportunities, and in the case of Angela Carini of Italy, her opportunity was stolen.
Yes.
By a guy.
Yes.
And so J.K. Rowling is one of the feminists who will say, this is not right.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking away opportunities for women.
Yes.
And she can't be canceled, it's true, Tim, but she gets a lot of blowback. A lot of ugliness comes her way.
I want Kamala Harris to be
asked about this.
I want her to be asked about it.
Well, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, you know what? The Democrats, they always try to play gotcha with the Republicans or with the conservatives, but the liberal media never puts it back on them.
Yes.
They need to say, at what point are you in favor of stopping abortion? To the moment of birth?
Right.
That's what Trump said yesterday at the place he was speaking at. You never hear that kind of question asked of the liberal politicians. Is always trying to put the conservatives into a gotcha moment.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Fred and Ed. Brent Creeley, our producer, Sandy Rios, and
by the way, after this, I'm going to do a routine on the pommel horse.
We're going to videotape it and put it on the internet.
This time there will be pictures.
All right, see you next time, folks.
This is Abraham Hamilton III with AFR, and we're sending Bibles. Here's my